For Honor has a wide variety of armor that has a multitude of stats. This video explains For Honor's stats so you know exactly what armor and weaponry to focus on when you get new drops after matches. Depending on your character and playstyle, different stats will have more or less importance to you. With For Honor stats explained, you can determine which stats you want to increase and which stats you don't care about when looking at new armor. Your base attack damage is directly influenced by the attack stat. If you want to hit harder, increase this stat. When a heavy attack is blocked, it still causes a bit of damage. Raising this stat increases the amount of damage inflicted when an opponent blocks your attack. Again, when you block a heavy attack, it inflicts a very small amount of damage. This stat lowers that small amount of block damage received from heavy attacks. Bleed, poison, and other damage over time effects are considered debuffs. This stat increases your resistance to those effects, lowering the damage taken. Your base defense is determined by the defense stat. The higher this stat is, the less damage you take. When you perform an execution, you regain some health. Increasing this stat raises the amount of health you gain from an execution. When you run out of stamina, you enter an exhaustion state. This stat determines how long this status lasts. The higher this stat is, the shorter your exhaustion period will be. As you level up during battles, you'll gain access to 4 feats. After using a feat, there's a cooldown period before you can use it again. This stat determines how long that cooldown period is. The higher your feat cooldown reduction stat is, the faster you'll be able to use your feats again. This stat determines how much your revenge gauge increases when you take damage. By default, your revenge gauge increases every time you block or parry an attack. Raising this stat increases how much your revenge gauge fills with each block or parry. While the attack stat determines your base attack damage, the revenge mode attack stat determines how much your attack increases when you activate revenge mode. In a similar vein, the revenge mode defense stat determines how much your defense increases once you activate revenge mode. This stat determines how long your revenge mode lasts. The higher this stat, the longer your revenge mode lasts. If you increase your revive speed stat, you will revive fallen teammates at a faster speed. When you're not locked on and sprinting, this stat determines how fast you run. Increase this stat if you actually want to catch up to those peacekeepers. Your stamina slowly regenerates whenever you're not using an attack or movement that drains stamina. This stat increases the rate at which your stamina regenerates. Practically everything in this game costs stamina. When you attack, dodge, or perform any action that requires stamina, this stat lowers the amount of stamina that's drained. Now, this stat does not increase the range of your guard break, or the distance of certain feats. Instead, it increases how far you throw an opponent after you land a successful guard break. And that's it for this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to check our description for more For Honor content. Also, be sure to check back every weekday for another Prima 365. And for more content like this, be sure to head over to primagames.com.